Well, another podcast here. We have a special guest, Doug Shore. And so I thought Doug would be a great guest to have on for a couple of different reasons, but especially with your background in the business to business media space, and you having the last 20 plus years. Well, obviously you've been out of it for now a few years, but you spent a good portion of your life in that industry, right? And Doug had one of, if not the largest, business to business media businesses here in Atlanta, but you guys were well beyond Atlanta, right? I mean, you guys did conferences and events.
We were national and international in scope, but yeah, we had a business that we started here in 81 or 82, and grew it and sold it in 95, and then sold it again in 98.
And so just give us a little bit of context to what those early days were like as a media company, and how you've seen media evolve. Because right now people think of media, and yes, there's still the mainstream media on TV networks, especially news channels. But now media is, just this huge term, social media, all the photos, videos, all this online content. What was the media space like back in, the 80s into the 90s? And how
I can even go back to the 70s.
Please,
when I was part of a family business in the 70s in New York. We moved here in 77, late 77, because of the problems in New York. But I can tell you, the tools I had when I first started in 1970 were a manual typewriter and a rotary phone. I mean, that's
how do you produce videos with that? No.
That was the technology, state of the art. Eventually we upgraded to Selectrics.
I'm not even familiar.
And then push button phones, and it all grew from there. But yeah, when you go back to the 70s and 80s, most publications like ours were print publications.
And your publication, the name, a little bit of background on the names.
Yeah, well, we wound up with a number of different publications, but the first company starting from New York, the biggest publication was National Real Estate Investor. And we moved that company down here. We bought Atlanta Magazine when we moved here, which happened to fit in well. And then we sold that company in 81 and started a new one in 82. But we had maybe a dozen B2B magazines, as well as Atlanta and Business Atlanta in that company.
And were all those set up as separate entities, or were they under an umbrella hey, there's this...
They were under an umbrella company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you name the publications that can you name them all? Because I come from the print advertising world. Of course, it morphed with digital technology.
Oh yeah, when we sold just before everything went completely digital in the 90s. But our old company, we had National Real Estate Investor, Pension World, Elastomerics, Modern Paint and Coatings, Solid Waste Management, Container News, which was containerized shipping.
Wow.
Books like that. And then the new company, which we started in 82, we bought a magazine called Apparel Industry, and it came with a trade show, which was our first trade show, and we started growing that. Then acquired a magazine called Professional Furniture Merchant, which we later sold because it wasn't going very far. But we launched Display and Design Ideas, which became a very successful magazine, and in turn launched a major trade show called Global Shop. We had a magazine that we bought in the sporting goods industry that we immediately renamed and relaunched called Sports Trend. We had a magazine in the automotive aftermarket called Auto Trim and Restyling News, and we launched a magazine in the automotive market called, it was Automotive Interiors, we changed the name a couple of times, but I wanted to get the automotive interiors we launched a trade show with that at the same time. And by the time we were finished we sold the business in 95, part of it to a private equity firm in Boston. And then we all exited in 1998 when we sold the whole company to VNU, which was a Dutch company. Its United States headquarters were in New York. And that is now probably better known as Nielsen. It owned the Nielsen business and a few other things like Hollywood Reporter and things like that.
And yeah, I think Nielsen is one that I definitely grew up hearing, all the time for all the ratings of sitcoms and, whatever other, shows
well, that
on
was
TV.
part of it was the ratings and part of it was market research.
Was
And
one of the
they
Dutch.
separated and then brought it back together under VNU.
Is Nielsen, is that one of the original Dutch founders of the company, maybe?
No, that was all American.
Okay. Your background is very similar to mine. I started to work with a publisher's rep firm here in Atlanta.
Okay.
I actually started my career, I was telling Jake a little earlier, with a marketing company. I was right out of the Navy, essentially, and tried a few things, real estate and, some other things, property investing, and got interested in marketing. So I went to work for a small marketing company and then got a chance to be an ad rep for the Greenville Business Magazine.
Okay.
When Greenville came, with that BMW plant came in
Right.
Greer, South Carolina, that upstate of South Carolina exploded.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got out of the service, I asked around, where should I move in South Carolina? It's my home state. And they were like, well, you need to go back to the upstate because that's going to be booming. And it really, if you go to Greenville today, it looks so different.
It became so international.
Oh yeah, it's really, with that BMW plant.
BMW and others.
I did the advertising sales for several years and then got a chance to come to Atlanta and work for a publisher's rep firm, Newt Collinson. I don't know if you know that name.
Didn't know them, no.
Well, they had a publisher's rep firm and I joined and we repped various titles and we handled travel and tourism as a category and non-endemic stuff, right? With these, we did TV Guide and Reader's Digest, some really big consumer brands. But we also were involved in the meetings and conventions industry. We repped various magazines that hit segments of that.
Right.
And long story short, we wound up firing the publisher. Usually it's the other way around, right?
Right.
The publisher fires the reps, like all the time. We fired the publisher and launched our own titles. And pretty soon with each title came a conference. And then the company morphed into a big conference and convention company. Now they own probably 50 or 60 conventions that happen all over the world, and there are magazine titles for some of those as well.
Yeah.
But
What company was it?
What started out as Collinson Media and Events, and then Collinson Publishing, then Collinson Media and Events, and then a company called Connect, CONNECT. And now it started being sold off to various investors. There was a British company that bought us, and I exited about 6 years ago. And I cannot remember for the life of me right now the name of the company that bought us because I'm just so separated from it. But it is a crazy business, and those conventions changed everything because now, as a marketing salesperson, you're no longer just working with the advertising in the magazine. You're doing sponsorships at the shows themselves and all the various forms of sponsorships and
The booth sales, sponsorships. They sell anything that's moving and a lot of things that aren't.
Yeah.
I remember one trade show we were at, they sold the risers on the steps up to the main level. You could just
We
read
sold
as you
big
went up.
decals about the size of this table
Yeah.
that they would glue to the floor, and it would point people to go this way, and then there'd be a sponsor underneath it. Everything was for sale.
Right, except in McCormick Place when we did our first show in the new, what was then the new South building, I think.
Yep.
They wouldn't let us put any floor graphics on the terrazzo.
Yeah.
They said,
it was
no,
brand new.
too early, it's brand new, can't do it.
Well,
So-
Otherwise,
interesting.
we would have sold that too, yeah.
So, if you don't mind going back to when you said, what was the first publication that you started off with, and did you acquire that, or did you start it hey, we're gonna start creating this content,
When we started the new business in '82,
Well, actually, even like, what was your very first
Well,
like?
my father started the original business in New York in
Okay.
1959.
Wow.
And what was his? If you don't mind going back, to
He was
whatever.
he was a publisher's rep.
Okay.
Yeah.
He
went
sold,
off and did his own thing.
He sold on commission. If he didn't sell, we didn't eat.
Been
Yeah.
there, done that.
And he did that for quite a while, mostly in the consumer field. Repped a number of different publications, but had an opportunity, I think it was 58 or 59, I don't remember, to buy a magazine called National Real Estate Investor. These other folks had founded it, published one issue, and ran out of money.
Yeah. What is the old joke? You know how to make a small fortune in publishing. Start with a large fortune.
Yeah.
And that joke is it's
Used for the
movable.
rocket
You can
industry,
move it.
yeah,
It's movable. It's like
It's
a
in the wine
barcode.
industry, it's in just about
Yeah.
any industry.
It's in any industry.
Yeah, and well, that's like even not just starting a business. I mean, yeah, you're going to be able to collect a paycheck, working at a normal job. But, with anything, if it's not a labor of love, it's going to come to an end regardless. Unless it's just like, hey, regardless of whether I'm getting paid $1 or however many dollars or $0, I'm still going to do it. And now, again, easier said than done when you have mouths to feed, bills to pay, and everything. But,
Yeah. Well, anyway, he bought this magazine, they skipped a month. I think there was an October issue, and he got the December issue out. And it ran monthly after that. He started flying around the country. It was a nationwide book. He started selling ads to real estate developers, land developers, banks, mortgage companies, anybody that was interested in commercial real estate. And grew it over time, and then acquired or started other publications.
Needless to say, you became a rep. He hired you to sell, right?
No, actually, I started out as an editor
Okay.
very cool.
and learned how to write articles and lay out magazine pages and things like that. But it took me a while to learn the business, and we had a number of magazines by that time, and we kept growing. We started a magazine in the shopping center field. We started a magazine we acquired the magazine in solid waste management and container news. We acquired the industrial books, Modern Paint and Coatings and Elastomerics, things like that. But what got me started as an entrepreneur was really within the company. I was working on National Real Estate Investor as editor and then publisher, and the book was growing. But we had another magazine called Pension World that covered the pension and investment industry for that market. And at one point we noticed that a lot of pension funds were starting to invest in real estate. Back in the early 50s and before that, they mostly invested in bonds. And then they started investing in stocks. And in the late 70s, they started investing in real estate. I said, well, we got a real estate magazine sitting here and a pension magazine sitting here. Why don't we get together and do a conference? Now, that was after we'd moved to Atlanta.
Okay.
And nobody was really supportive of that in the business.
Too risky, or just like too much money outlay?
Well, they didn't know what it was going to be, and
Right.
I didn't know what it was going to be, but I was willing to take a chance, and I tried to keep it small in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I worked with some people in circulation who knew a lot about direct mail, and we managed to put some mail pieces together. The editors of the magazines put together panels for both the pension side and the real estate side to talk about how these two industries were getting together. We didn't really sell sponsorships at that time because the ad people really didn't want us to get involved in taking money away from them. But we had lists of people, our subscriber lists of both magazines, and it was such a hot topic that we wound up doing a conference at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Atlanta with over 800 attendees at $400 a piece.
Yeah, pretty good business.
So it was in 1980 or so, it was about $320,000 of revenue.
That's like $3 billion
And
today.
what it is today, I don't know.
Yeah.
And the profit margins were enormous. We netted over 200,000, and that everybody was very happy at that point.
Yeah.
There
Doug, this
was
wasn't
no
such a bad idea
There was
after all.
no further resistance, but that was my first effort to try and create something brand new, and it worked. So
That's the equivalent of you adding something to your drone mix that is not normally related to drones. I can't think of something off the top of my head, but it would be.
Well,
don't you have
it
your
actually
hands?
was our drones, right? Because we got a lot of, flack or, a lot of people saying, hey, just focus on your media business. That's bringing you in money right now. You can grow and scale that, but at the long-term expense of what's really going to make us a huge company, and really the company I want to make iVue, which is centered around consumer drone technology.
yeah, and in your case, the media business supports the growth of the new business.
Right.
And in publishing, we had the similar thing. We had an existing company. It created a cash flow.
Yeah.
So we had some cash that we could invest in these new ventures. And when we started the new company in '82, we acquired a magazine that already had a trade show. It wasn't very big because we didn't have a lot of money, but we invested in that, and we started growing it and found entrepreneurial ways to grow that business, and then eventually grew other publications, either launching them from scratch or buying them. And usually what we were buying was fairly inexpensive because there was something wrong with it.
Right.
But we knew the publishing industry,
Yeah.
we knew how to fix it. So we could get something cheap and do the necessary surgery on it, and
Good as new, or better than.
make it grow.
Real quick, 2
Yeah.
points. Number one, these verticals that you guys bought are so smart. I've learned this from publishing. If you buy something that's targeted, everyone thinks publishing is about, the TV guides, and we rep TV Guide, and, we work with Parade. And I was going to ask you if your dad worked with the Newhouse family at all.
No, he didn't.
No? Okay. Well, these massive produced, big circulation consumer B2C pubs, the real smartest way to go is B2B, or these trade pubs or these
Very
verticals.
narrow.
So that leads me to the second point, which is start a magazine for drone enthusiasts and drone operators. Here's a good guy to bounce ideas off to launch it. Now, that would be like you starting a magazine with what you're already doing. How busy are you guys with what you're already doing? But one day you might have a magazine, or you might have a digital magazine.
Or,
more likely.
a podcast that I could
Or-
also talk about
well,
the work that we're doing
yeah.
in drones,
Yeah,
right?
But, we are there magazines in that field already?
Yes.
And
There
are
are.
there trade shows in that field? If there are,
Yeah.
unless you can see your way to do something that no one else is doing,
I think
I
that
would say don't look at it. But you can find opportunities within fields. One of our biggest products eventually was the display and design ideas, and the Global Shop trade show that it spawned. The magazine we launched in 1988, 89. By 92 or 3, it was doing maybe $1.5 million in revenue.
Wow.
And we launched the trade show in 93, and that did $1 million in revenue. And before the show was over, we'd already sold more than $3 million worth for the next year.
Wow.
And by the time we sold the business for the second time in 98, the magazine was doing over $4 million, and the trade show was doing over $8 million. And it represented almost half of our business, and probably more than half of our profits, because the profits on trade shows like conferences can be very high.
Yeah, I've heard the event space is like done right. Your point.
Yeah.
Great profit margins, but I've also heard events lose $1 million. And it's just probably bad planning, or maybe hey, we're going to start bigger than maybe we should, and then eat the loss.
Markets change. I don't know how long you've been in Atlanta. You've been here
25 years.
Yeah. So you may remember the Super Show, the big sporting goods show that was down at the convention center in downtown. It was a huge show. It took over the entire convention center. And then when they built the old Georgia Dome, it took over that. They also had exhibits on the floor of the Georgia Dome. And then after a while, it just started collapsing and then went away. It was one of the biggest trade shows in the country. And then, 10 years later, it was gone.
Same thing with industry I'm sure you guys are super familiar with. There's the conference E3, electronic entertainment, video games essentially. And that was same thing. Grew up, as a kid, elementary school, middle school especially, like, all right, E3's coming up. What video game consoles, what are the new biggest video game launches going to be? And then Nintendo starts doing their own conference, Sony does their own, and that's how I see it for us. Yeah, there's conferences that we have gone out and set up a booth at, exhibited at, spoken at, etc. But I think, really the future for our company is growing into our own, hey, we're going to do a yearly or maybe twice yearly kind of keynote sort of presentation, and we're doing all of our new product launches or refreshes.
And if you don't keep up with the markets, you go away.
They'll pass you by.
The Comdex.
The
Comdex trade show, which was one of the biggest out in Vegas.
Yeah.
The guy, what's his name?
That was Sheldon Adelson.
Adelson.
He died a few years ago.
Yeah, but he sold that.
Owns the Venetian
at its
Hotel.
peak, and invested his money in growing Las Vegas casinos and convention halls, and then went over to Macau and did the same thing. He became a multi-billionaire off of the money that he invested in that and earned from selling that show. But the show went away after he sold it.
Yeah, and plus there are other meeting planner reps and other representatives of these other destinations that are trying to steal shows away. The Future Farmers of America met in Louisville one night, and I was trying to find a hotel room. I had to drive about 30 miles outside of Louisville, and I found like a Days Inn that had one room left. I come down for breakfast, and the room is filled with all these kids. Great looking kids. They're all dressed. They all had on the same T-shirts. All the red T-shirts were kids from some Future Farmers of America group out and wherever. And this group over here was packed, the whole downtown, these citywides. And the conferences that my company put on were meeting planner conferences. So that added a whole nother layer of profitability, because it's all these meeting planners coming in. And I'll finish up on myself here, but our conferences, we launched a really kind of a radical idea. At our conferences, we created the marketplace. And what that was a place where meeting planners were seated at booths, and all the reps went and had 3-minute appointments or 5-6 minute appointments.
Like speed dating.
Speed dating. We had a little ding, go to your next appointment. And at first it was a nightmare to organize that. But once we got that under control, everybody wanted to come to our shows, because all the reps got to sit and get one-on-one FaceTime with all those destinations or all those meeting planner groups that they wanted to try to pull their meeting to their destination. It really was brilliant.
Getting that face-to-face. Some of that went away with COVID, but people I talk to say, there's no replacement for getting face-to-face with people. And shows are growing again. The magazine that we launched that got so big, Display and Design Ideas, there was another magazine in the field. We were completely unfamiliar with the industry. But one of my partners was visiting a friend who had a small mom and pop shop. And there was a magazine on our coffee table called VM and SD, Visual Merchandising and Store Design. And it was thick, tons of ads. And he brought a copy of it home back to us, and we looked at it, we researched it, and we couldn't find any competition. but we also found flaws in their marketing structure. They weren't reaching the right people. They weren't reaching enough people. We were able to better define the audience, reach more decision makers, more top-notch decision makers, and get a broader circulation, still narrow,
Yep.
but considerably broader and considerably higher level. And we grew fantastically, but the trade show knocked it into a whole other category. That made the difference between being just competitive with these other guys and
starting to really pull ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the trade shows really dying off with COVID, and they've come back to some degree. I don't know if it was quite, 2019 levels. I'm sure for some, they're probably even exceeding, those numbers. But we were actually going to be exhibiting at the largest drone conference, at least in North America, and then, it might even be the largest global one as well. Just so happened they're going to be in Atlanta 2020, and then COVID had other ideas about that, so they pushed it towards the end of the year, and then they still ended up canceling it, pushed it back to the next year. We're finally able to exhibit, but actually just going backwards a little bit, February of 2020, again, right before COVID hit, Brian and I went up to Nashville. We were invited up to a SolidWorks conference. So there's like 3D CAD design software if you're, designing drones or cars or any sort of, electromechanical sort of product. And we were accepted into their Entrepreneurship program where we got their free software for, a year, and then 70% off for the next year, 50. And part of that, they also invited us out to their conference for free. And we were like hearing about COVID, as the conference was going around. And, not that we would make these sort of jokes, but that was at the time, people were like kind of jokingly, any Asian looking person, stay away from them. They might have COVID.
Racist.
Yeah. Again, we were not doing that. So then sure enough, some institutions, some conferences, organizations start already shutting down, towards the end of February. And then actually come March, we had another media opportunity that we were working with Mercer University and a publishing company, a digital publishing company called Coherent Digital. And they're creating these case studies for the counseling department at Mercer to use. So basically the student like in the counseling program could put on a VR headset and then watch these 360 degree videos that we produced, where it was basically the 360 camera was in the counselor's chair, and then the actor that we brought in was talking to the 360 camera as if they were a counselor, opening up about depression or anxiety or domestic abuse. And it was literally March 14th was when we did that, and then that was Mercer was the last school, any organization that I saw to close down. Every other organization was closed down, and then literally the next day, Mercer closed. It's like just in the nick of time, we were able to get it in. Yeah.
Real quickly, you mentioned about going to conferences and their drone conferences that you're going to, and see, I feel if I were in your shoes, I would be thinking of where can my drones benefit and use and go to those conferences. You would be probably the only drone person there. That's what you want. You want to really be unique. Tourism, which is the vertical that we worked in, for example, if you went to a tourism, you have all these convention and visitor people who represent their communities, and they've got events happening, and you go there and you have a booth and you have a demonstration, and you're like, use drone technology to categorize your event, to photo your event, to fly around and film and use for promotional. And you could probably also talk to the head person that is running, it's usually a CVB that is involved with these conferences, and you could say, hey, we'll give you media coverage for this event if you'll give us a break on the booth cost.
Yeah.
So it may not be as expensive. Just an idea. Would you agree with that?
Well, you want to go to where your future potential customers are going to be.
Yeah.
So if you have
We've gone to education conferences.
If you have a product that will sell to a certain industry, you want to be in that industry's conference.
Yep.
And as you grow, hopefully, and you get into a lot of industries, you may wind up going to a lot of different trade shows and conferences.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have to build the capacity to do that, but that's how you're going to sell to people who are potential customers in those different markets.
And as soon as you start having success, word's going to get out. And next year,
you're calling me not successful, Jim?
well, if you crack into an industry and start providing service, word will get out. And then at next year's conference, there'll be another drone booth there. Then you penetrated and you led the charge, and other people are taking notice, and your competitors are now going to start to come in and offer their wares.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of this, like in the media space, right? Where we're not using our drones for pretty much any of our media work. And it's not even us doing the media work on site by and large, right? It's kind of like the Uber sort of marketplace connection sort of approach, where we're just connecting local photographers, videographers, drone pilots to the nearby realtors or construction companies or businesses hosting events that need some sort of photo video coverage. And so we've gone out to construction, trade show events, same thing with real estate.
Yep,
we've got some of our customers there. And then similarly in the drone space, we're not going after too many verticals right now, just because, quite frankly, our drones suck for the everyday person, right? You need to be technically savvy. You need to be a developer. It's literally in the name. Develop Air is the name of our drone. And so we've focused on schools for where we're selling them, but really our approach to get more Develop Air out there is making it open source, making content that's infinitely scalable online, has next to no publishing cost associated with it. And as long as you have good content, the distribution will take care of itself by and large. But it's really, again, we're not going to make our money even off the drone product that we have ready to sell right now. Again, to really, like in any sort of new technology, like going back to the automotive industry, were there people making money selling, $10,000, $20,000 cars when that was more than a house, right? Absolutely. But the ones that really made it and then stood the test of time were the ones that figured out how can we refine it down to the point that's easy to produce at scale and then is easy to use at scale, right? And that's where we're really going to make our money as a company. And it just takes a long while, especially with the resources we have to work with, to get to where we can make that product and bring it to market. And as you know, I just sent out a proposal to hopefully help us with that. But in the meantime, it's just using our current drone product as a development platform, getting it into schools that have STEM programs that want to introduce their students to these concepts where, again, we all are car and computer operators today, but we don't think of ourselves as car and computer operators. That's going to be the same case for these students in schools where they're just going to be sending a drone out to the local Amazon lock or fast food restaurant retail store, just going to be part of their everyday lives, right? And it's like, how do we, go after everyone? Well, start off with the developers, the people that are going to refine the technology or help us refine the technology, and then create specific applications or, in the case of our software, or modules, attachments for the drones that can then be used by roofers for roofing or farmers for farming or, by everyone for deliveries, right? And that's, again, a much longer tail approach, but I don't really see any other way to really get to realizing a mass market potential of drones. So again, maybe we'll
pitch the ball to Doug at this point and let him tell you how far-fetched it might be.
Well, I don't know all of your circumstances, all of your products, how much financing you have to go forward with, and things like that. Yep. But I can tell you that the best way to sell something, the best way to do market research to see if somebody wants to buy your product is actually sell it to them.
Yep.
That's what we used to say when we launched a magazine or launched a trade show. The first thing we did after, whatever basic research we needed was actually go out and try and sell advertising or sell booth space. If you couldn't sell it, then that wasn't a product.
Right.
And one of the weaknesses I find in a lot of startups is they're so enamored of building on their ideas and creating something better and better and better without ever asking if anybody actually wants to buy that. So the key thing to me is that you find somebody who wants to buy what you're doing, and if they don't want to buy it, find out why they don't want to buy it and fix it so that it makes it something they do want to buy.
We have been in the fixing phase for quite some time.
And you start creating income, you start creating cash flow.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the tech field raise venture capital, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily if you need it, but you're giving away part of your ownership.
Yeah.
And if it's an early stage, seed stage, then there's Series A, Series B, all along the way. You're going to keep giving away parts of your equity. If you can bootstrap that, then you get to keep all that equity. But in order to bootstrap it, you need some money coming in. And the best place to get that money is from your customers,
Yep.
which
I
means
agree.
you need to find customers, which means you need to make sure that what you're building can be sold to somebody. And that's where you have to go to all of these different markets. But if you have limited resources, you can't go to every market.
Yep.
You have to focus where do you think you can get the greatest sales in the shortest amount of time?
Well, I've even found...
Who can buy quickly
Well,
I convince them that this is going to work.
I found that's not the case because I have no problem selling. That's my default state. It's just we don't have the product that I know that not just I want, but the market wants as well. And we're just 10 years behind China, and actually not just us as a company, but us as a country being able to make that product, let alone produce it. And so it's not really like, oh, we're still trying to, just make the best gadget, It's like we've already sold our drones and very much know the feedback that we've received from them. And, we're giving ourselves worse feedback than any customers are. It's just, it's like starting a car company with next to no money.
Well, if you're trying to compete with China, that's 10 years ahead of you. By the time you catch up to China, how much far ahead of you is China going to be then? They're not standing still either.
And that's where, the Chinese market has totally been cut off from the United States because of the whole reliance that not just the military has on their products, but our consumer and commercial users will as well. And that's it's really something that, many people, especially within, the regulatory positions, have had their blinders on. Let's just let China keep making all of our products that we're going to rely on, except when it comes to warfare. And then, we're screwed.
When national security is an issue, that makes a difference. But you don't know what the market's going to be like. I mean, right now you've got all kinds of trade negotiations going on. What kind of chips can we sell to China? What kind of stuff can we buy from them? And it's going to be constantly changing. How do you get ahead of all that?
Yeah,
and how do you create something that, even if the markets become open, we become best friends with China, and everything is completely open, how are you going to be ahead of that?
Yeah, so the real answer is where the Chinese company that's by far and away the market dominant player in the drone space, their name is DJI. They sell basically flying camera drones. And think about what the smartphone did to where nobody carries around a point and shoot camera. No one carries around a calculator. No one carries around a compass or even oftentimes watches because you all have it in one device. That's what we're doing with the drone industry, is we're taking a drone that could be modified with not just cameras, but cargo containers, sprayers, communications devices, weather monitors. So it really becomes like what the smartphone did to the mobile camera market, and really just the mobile phone market, where it just consolidated all these devices, where right now you have drone operators. They'll have a delivery drone, an agriculture drone, a camera drone. And given not every person is buying each of those types of drones,
right,
but there's a lot of people that are. And that's where no one's really been focused on, hey, how can we do this differently than China? China. How can we beat China at their own game? And I realized we're never going to beat China in building the best flying camera drone. We need to take more of like, we're building a flying computer.
And if that's, if China is not going in that direction, or if the market is currently cut off for various reasons,
it's skating where the puck is going.
It gives you some opportunity, but find out who can buy what you can sell the soonest, so you have cash coming in, and that will allow you to grow in the other areas. If the biggest need, I have no idea, but if the biggest need is for farmers to have drones that can spray their crops, then go in on selling to farmers and make a lot of money from farmers, and then invest that money in whatever is next.
I personally think that's the wrong approach, and that's the one that everybody else is taking. And really, right now, again, not just us as a company, but this country, they just need drone platforms that can be modified and repaired with whatever payload that the end user wants to attach. And that's literally what the military is looking to immediately field, let alone with all these gizmos specifically for agriculture or just for imaging. Just us as a country, we desperately need to be able to build just the drones themselves, and we're just as far along, if not further along, than any other American company in doing so.
Well, you can build the drone as a platform for all these things,
right?
But you're going to have to sell
to developers.
To developers,
the people
but the people that need it. If it depends on how much money you have behind you, but if you're working on a shoestring and you have no money coming in, sell to somebody who needs the sprayers right now, or who needs the delivery.
I agree in theory, but in practice,
just to get
in practice with this type of product, right? We did that for the city of Chicago. We sold them a couple of our develop air drones that are really made for developers, technically savvy people. We equipped them with nice camera systems, $20,000 tether systems, and typically would sell a couple of develop airs in a package for like $7,000 to $12,000, $14,000, depending on how they're equipped: cases, controllers, batteries, accessories. For those two, it was $55,000, Oh yeah, just keep going doing that. But no, this is not a product that actually works well for them, even though it does on paper, right?
Well, it may be the best they have now,
but they'll just not use it.
Well, if they are not using it, then the question is, how do you make it better?
That's
for
for
them to use it.
And that's what we're working on. But that's, again, what is just a lot more expensive. And again, woe is me, right? Working in the drone business, working with hardware.
But eventually, you need to be able to sell something to somebody, or you don't have a business.
We are. It's not like, hey, this is all pie in the sky. We are actively selling drones. Literally just delivered two to a customer yesterday.
Jake wants to. I'm not attacking you because you have a lot of vision.
I feel like I'm getting attacked.
No, don't feel defensive at all. You're getting great. I'm telling you from my experience of 25 years in sales, and this guy is way beyond what I did, because he brought things up from nothing. You really should listen hard, man, because this is good advice. I've seen this stuff, and you're in a situation where you're able to continue doing what you're doing. I can't reiterate more strongly what I'm hearing him say, which is fine. If you're going to be in business and you want to grow something, you start with something and you build it and you grow it, and you've got to find a customer base that needs it and that you can convince to buy it. And then once that gets going and you get some income stream, then you can use that money. You can add and do all these other things. You're at the 30,000. I'll wrap up my comment. You're at 50,000 feet. You want to stay there.
I think they're just completely different types of businesses, and I'm not at 50,000.
You have to get down to the 15,000 feet.
I am. I just don't think that this is literally a consumer industry that will affect everyone in the same way. Go look at the early days of Apple, right? It's not like they were just selling the Apple ones to, fucking spreadsheet operators or accountants, right? They were selling computers to the nerds, the enthusiasts that were then going and developing those applications on their platform, right? And we're taking that exact same approach, or use the automotive industry as an example. It was the people working on their own cars. It was the people that were enthusiasts, right? Before it was just the refinement is the only thing that's keeping us from being able to go after these industries. It's just, that's what is a lot of the work that takes a lot of time or can be expedited with money.
When the Model T or Model A, whichever the first
Or
one,
for the
Henry
first
Ford,
revolvers,
the first car that came out didn't look anything like and didn't have the capabilities that cars have today, but it answered a need, and it killed Henry Ford to convince people and to fight the bureaucracy to allow him to even make the damn thing. It was a long fight, but once it got in, originally the thought was only the ultra wealthy elite should
cars.
have cars.
Cars were for the rich. Cars were for the rich.
Cars are toys for rich people.
And Ford had the idea, no, this can be something that the common man can own. And look at how it started.
And I'm going to pay my workers enough so they can buy the cars too.
Yeah.
But
you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
don't be. I'm just saying, please don't, because this is all great. You got great ideas, and you're entrepreneur.
I mean, the choice for anybody doing a startup is, where do I get enough money to make the business grow?
Yep.
And if you can convince investors to put the money in, that's fine, but you're losing equity as you do that.
Nothing's free.
Nothing's free. So if you can create your own revenue stream, that
doing both.
And
I mean,
and
that's
the best
one
way
of
to do that is to sell something.
and if you can do both, that's fine too.
That's what we have done and are going to continue to do.
I'm a limited partner in a VC outfit here in town, and I know there are many different kinds of VCs.
Yep.
Some of them will only invest
based off revenue,
based on you having revenue.
Yep.
There are others that will invest in pre-revenue businesses, different outlook, different markets. But to many of them, you haven't shown proof that you're really doing anything yet until you have revenue.
And good thing we have more than a couple $100,000 of that. I mean, just from our drones.
If that's good, then that is the basis on which you can grow the rest of the business. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, you've accomplished a lot. I mean, that was an idea 8 years ago or whenever. It was just this idea. We're sitting around. Look at it now.
5 years ago.
Well, your business, this idea. So you've come along. You've done some great things.
We have literally done more
accomplished.
in both sales and production and development than companies that are worth $24 billion here in America.
Yeah. Well, then.
It's just we don't have the right person that is really willing, that has national or global credibility to put their line for us doing something like a Henry Ford or a Samuel Colt that is really going after a mass market. And we just don't have a lot of people with that sort of mind.
And maybe you don't want a mass market.
That's what I do want. That is absolutely. I want to bring drones to every household and business. That is my life's calling.
Okay. But sometimes, like you were saying about the consumer publications versus the business publications.
Mm-hmm.
It's a longer road for sure.
It's a longer road. It takes a lot more money.
Yep.
And one of the things I've seen people doing is that they come up with an idea that is for the mass market, and they know they can't afford to actually produce at that level. So they work up licensing deals with people who can.
Yep.
And then they don't have to do very much work at all.
Yep.
They just collect the license fees. And that's one venture. I know people who have started things on the consumer level, and it takes a long time to build. And how successful they are depends on how quickly they can either sell or find investment to get behind it. So you have that choice.
Yeah, and to me, I know there's the big startup mentality. If you're not already taken off in 4 years, you might as well give up. And I'm not saying people say that exactly, but that is a lot of the mentality. It's if you're not already making millions of dollars by year 5, year 6, you don't even have a real business. But if you look at, again, a Samuel Colt, he literally from the time he was 18 was working on a revolver, which was seen as a magical concept of having a true multi-shot gun, right? And it took decades to find the right investors, right customers before, and he even got orders and investment over decades that he was not able to fulfill orders or fulfill them fast enough, but eventually he just kept sticking with it, and that's what I'm willing to do.
Well, time moved more slowly then.
I think we're a lot,
but
not in this era of America where we're again having to reindustrialize because we don't have the industrial base that we used to have.
Who are the people who are saying if you don't make it within 4 or 5 years, you're not going to make it? Those are probably people who are venture capitalists investing. And the reason they're saying that is because they have to provide a return to their investors.
Yep.
They can't invest in you if it's going to take you 20 years to come up with a product that can sell. They need something that's going to happen.
That might sell.
They need something that's going to happen faster, which is fine. You don't have to meet their model.
I think we could.
You can meet your own model.
Yep.
But again,
you got to sell something.
You need the resources to do what you have to do, and that means you have to sell something.
We are, and again, we're going to continue down the path, and if it's slower just based off of our own revenue, great. We'll take the 20 years to do it, but we are going to continue to bring in more investment to expedite that path because of our selling. Okay. I don't know what the idea is, like, hey, Jacob, it sounds like you're not selling. You know, that's like...
No, we know you're selling. But are you selling enough to generate the cash you need to make the investment? If you are, that's good. If you're not, then you either need to generate more cash more quickly, or you need to look outside for investors who will support your story and who have the patience to work with you, knowing that with their money you can speed things up a little bit.
Or if I might add, and I think this is the crux of the conversation, is the vision that you have. You're ahead of your time, let's say. What I think Doug is saying is that if you focus down on one vertical or one need and started to solve that.
But until we actually get a fucking really reliable, highly producible drone, it doesn't matter going down any of those verticals if the drone all of those applications are built on suck, right? And that again,
all the more reason to answer that call, or that's what the need is. Right. If that's the need,
but it's the drone itself, right? And again, we are just as far ahead, if not further ahead, than any other American drone company in this space. And again, $20 billion companies that put out a drone on the same line of our Develop Air, a development platform. It's just, again, everyone in like the personal computer industry, they had that same philosophy. Well, it wasn't even the personal computer industry at the time. It was, let's go after enterprise and all these different verticals. Let's go after the military. But who stands the test of time? It's the ones that when there wasn't a lot of money in it in the very early stages were developing the consumer technology that also works within businesses, that also works within the military. And no one's taken that approach because, there's not a lot of people that want to back it at the early stages. But that's, again, just something I've been willing to commit my life to. And again, whether or not we can take off in the mass market in a couple years with the right investor, or, we're just going to continue, making the refinements and improvements needed based off of the team that we're able to keep on and build just with our revenue, so be it. I'm just saying, there is the opportunity, and it was being filled by and large to some degree by those Chinese drones that you just can't get. You can't get the components, and yes, that may come back, but there's still going to be the national security concern, right?
Yeah. And did you ever meet with that? I can't think of his name.
Yeah, you guys came up
at KSU.
Yeah.
I know he's doing a lot of networking with the military. He's been invited to a number of things with his drone idea, and I don't know if there's any complementarity between what the two of you are doing, but it's an example of he's going, I guess, in a more vertical direction, looking for something that's very specific.
Yeah.
And you're looking at a broader market.
Right.
And, there's no right and wrong, except until people are willing to pay for you, you're not right. And
and again, we already have that proof that we're right. It's just becoming more right to more people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you have to you have to have the wherewithal to grow through that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's just the truth. I totally would agree. I
Like
mean,
the NVIDIA founder, I mentioned this last time, is if you want greatness in life, and he was like wishing someone greatness. In other words, I wish you a lot of pain and despair. I'm willing and, have done a lot. And again, I have a very comfortable life living in Metro Atlanta, but I've purposely chosen to make my life uncomfortable because no one else is doing so. And this country is going to fall even further behind if, this problem isn't solved. And because, again, a lot of this seems like fantastical ideas of drones being integrated into everyday society. China's already doing it, but it's at the behest of the government and not individual civilians getting to own and use the technology more freely. And it's, again, you can even go to China right now and get in, as a tourist, get in a passenger drone and travel across some of their cities. That's all, over-regulated and everything here in the United States. And so, yes, we are focusing on building the technology, first starting with smaller drones that can be part of everyday's lives as like a personal assistant drone. But really, it's also getting to the point that we're producing passenger drones.
So I can finally get that flying car that the Jetsons promised.
That's right.
Yeah, I have a great joke about the Jetsons. I will not tell. Yeah.
I mean, I just wonder how many people, if it was proven and safe, how many people would pay good money to have a drone come in the cul-de-sac and land and then throw their suitcase in and and zip them right to the Atlanta airport and land at the drone terminal for the drones. The drones would line up and disembark.
That's happening in China.
I'm not saying that's like we said earlier today. 30 years ago when the marketing guy I worked for said, eventually people are going to be buying groceries and restaurant food online. I'm like, come on, man. But now it's here. So I don't find that it's phantasmagorical or whatever to think that drones can't be integrated in, like you say.
Just the sad part is that our company, having ever had hundreds of thousands of dollars to work with, is much further ahead, or at least on par with any other American company.
Well, they may not be looking at it the same way, or they may have their own either blinders, or they may have their own needs to invest in certain directions. I mean, you mentioned Apple before, and Apple started off as a very unique kind of product.
Mm-hmm. Focused.
Very focused. And then
literally same exact focus that we have with developers.
And then the investors decided that Steve Jobs was not the person to run that company anymore. They needed grown-up management. They brought in a grown-up manager and booted Jobs out. And the company
almost failed.
And the company plateaued and was going downhill until they brought Jobs back.
Yeah.
So sometimes the founder does have a vision, and if you dump that vision,
so the company
goes with it.
Yep.
I saw a thing recently that a study of VCs and the companies they support, the ones where they keep the founder. Not necessarily a CEO, but at least keep them in some. Are 75% of them?
They're there as
are
like
successful,
the king and queen of England.
Whereas the ones that dump the founder, only 35% get successful. So they might become non-executive chairman. They might be a CTO or a chief product officer, but they're there.
Warren Buffett has finally stepped down as running Berkshire Hathaway, but you better believe he's still going to go to the office every day.
As long as he's breathing.
Yeah, but it's.
But yeah, I mean, it's all. We had situations where we tried to start magazines and trade shows, and we always tried to do it with very little money.
Yep.
But the reason was that we knew what we wanted to produce. We could show people what it was going to look like, and all we had to do was go out and sell people on buying it. And some of those worked very well. Some didn't work at all. There were some where we couldn't sell advertising, we couldn't sell booths, and we decided we had a point where either we had X much in sales
or we cut it
off.
Yeah.
And that happened. So you have those failures.
Yep.
And you were speaking directly to one need, right? You were going for a targeted. You had a targeted audience, and you thought that this was going to work, and it didn't.
And that targeted audience, for whatever reason, didn't believe in what we were trying to sell.
Yeah.
So okay, go in another direction.
My company was involved with several startup ideas, and we would get briefed as a sales guy. I was a senior sales guy, and you would get briefed up on it, and then your job was to go out and literally shake the trees or to really make it happen. I come from that environment. I don't come from a sales environment where we're answering and taking orders, so to speak. We had to go out and create the desire for it. And that's where a really good salesperson who has a vision and understands the vision comes into play. And it was really hard. But
that's where you had to start. We had one salesperson. He was a partner at first, then he decided he wanted to move to Florida, so we bought him out, but he continued working with us on an employment basis. And one of my partners used to make the analogy, this guy was like the Marines.
Yeah.
You sent him in to take the beach.
Yeah.
If you were going to start something, you needed him to go in.
Yeah.
And then after that, you could send in
I shouldn't say
the rest of the troops.
Because a lot of companies hire the beautiful woman as the salesperson, and I was considered a very pushy, battering ram kind of guy.
Yeah.
And
you weren't the beautiful woman.
And the word of the company, and I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but it was like, if Hampton can't close it, if he can't go in and get it, we're probably not going to be able to.
Yeah.
And I pissed off a lot of people too, because I was,
And that's what this guy did, because he was in your face. He was aggressive.
You gotta.
In fact, one of the things he used to do.
I gotta make a sale.
One of the things he used to do when he was interviewing prospective salespeople is, partway through the interview, he'd say, with what we've talked about so far and what you've told me, you can't be successful here. There's no point continuing this interview. You're just not going to work out. And that was a test.
Yeah, so can we share?
Are you going to overcome?
Now you've heard the objection.
Yeah.
How are you going to overcome it? And the people who, if that's the way you feel, I'll leave.
That's not a good salesperson.
That's not a good salesperson. You don't want them anyway. Yeah. The people who would fight with him, and he could get very obnoxious in a fight.
Yeah.
But, if they, you're out of your mind. I can do this, and let me show you how, and let me show you why.
Yeah.
And I can meet that objection.
Push back, but do it in a way that they will have respect for you versus hate you. I've done it both ways, where I was thrown out of offices, and one person sent a letter out saying, "We will not take Jim Hampton's phone call," and they thought they were going to get me fired. And I walked in and told my boss, who was I wish you had met him, because wonderful man, brilliant, short, small guy, intellectual as can be, but incredible. He had all of the abilities except some of the detail. His wife did the financial stuff. She was a math major. She was real focused in that way, but he was a fighter, and he hired, and I went in, and long story short, I told him, I think I'm in trouble, and he kind of chuckled. He's like, "Go ahead and keep working."
Yeah.
They thought they were going to get me fired, and they really got me a promotion.
Yeah.
He's like, "I know you're pushing. You can't be everybody's buddy." And some sales roles, like the pharmaceutical sales, and some of these roles, these salespeople who take lunch in. I'm not knocking anybody's profession or what they do, but a lot of it is personality, and you have to have a drive to win and to succeed, and you got to deal with the objections.
Shots, yeah.
Now
and have people hit you, and learn to not be angry at them. And I'm bad at it. Everyone is bad at it.
Now, once the product was in motion,
it's easier.
And that guy
would move on
because he didn't enjoy doing the routine stuff.
He wanted
to know what the next beach was
I used to think it would be so fun to sell for Rolling Stone or for I love National Geographic. That's one of the best magazines I think ever. And I have found out that the reps that rep those publications, they don't make, our commission structure was higher because the stuff we were selling was not as well known. It was harder. It was more vertical. It was harder, and we had to do more, and we got paid better for it.
Yeah.
So, and that's how it works too. It's
when we got successful with that Global Shop trade show, which was a hard sell at first because that industry had only had one trade show in the past, and it was very unsuccessful. It was here in Atlanta, in fact, when we were launching the magazine, and they had space in the convention center downtown, and the booths were widely spaced apart because they couldn't sell enough, and it only lasted 1 year and went out of business. So we had a lot to overcome, and we overcame it. But then, once you get all these people on the floor and customers, the booth customers are seeing their customers coming, and they're able to make connections and they're able to make sales. Now, when you sell that, what we did is we created a booth draw at the end of the first show, assuming that it was going to be successful, there were going to be enough people there, and it was. And now you just brought people in an order that we specified based on how big their booth was. And they came in and they had to pick the booth for the next show.
Yeah, that's smart. They went ahead and signed up for next year.
Because show euphoria is such that if you want to sell it right then, before the euphoria wears off.
They call back to their headquarters. Yeah, this is a great show. We need to be here next year. Okay, well, let's go ahead and bang.
Sign it now and write the check for the deposit.
Yeah, that's great.
And what happened is that $1 million revenue, before we left the show, we were getting close to $3 million in revenue for the next show, because the people that came in were so happy, and we were able to draw a bigger floor plan and a bigger space.
Yeah. Yep.
And they were coming in one at a time, and we continued that. Each year we had the show, we walked out of the show knowing roughly what, or at least 80 to 85% of what our revenue the next year was going to be. That was not hard selling.
Right.
That was somebody sitting with a booth, a floor plan, and taking orders.
Well, it's hunting.
Going in and increasing above that.
Right.
Getting in new people who did not experience the show. That was harder.
One thing I see with that, though, is that that's payment for all that work done to get that first show successful.
Yes,
that's part of the payoff.
Yep.
And one of the analogies I love with sales, when you really are talking about hardcore selling like this, it's like the jet airplane. You got to have a lot of gas and a lot of thrust to get down the runway and get it. Once you get airborne, it should get easier.
It should get easier. Yeah.
I kind of resented the easier products because it got, after a while, after 20 years with this company, I was just really getting tired. And my mom was ill too, so I wanted to go ahead and retire. I retired at 52. And, I've always been single, and I've just focused in that way, and always about making as much money as possible, investing it wisely and all that stuff. But I got to a point where I was not enjoying it. And if you don't enjoy it, like what you're talking about, if you don't have the passion,
showing up as a labor of love,
especially in the sales role like what we're talking about, if you don't have a passion for it,
good luck.
You're not going to make it, man. You're not going to last long. It's just too hard.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a great analogy with the airplane taking off the runway. And it's just the infrastructure that's required to build our business, at least successfully, is we're building this like big, heavy duty pickup truck or whatever. And then, oh man, we can only put a couple drops of gasoline at a time. And that's what we're doing right now. It's like, we need someone that can come in and help us, really fill up the tank so we can get down the road. And again, to your point, the best person is our customers, right? And we are actively still getting revenue from those customers. It's just, again, a little bit of gas. It's like stopping at every exit on the highway, right? And that's what we'll continue doing, right? And continue to ramp that up as much as we can. But of course, if we can get someone, and not just with cash, right? Ideally, they can help us fill in the tank, then maybe even make some calls. Hey, there's some police officers out there. You might want to slow down, or construction. You might want to take this detour.
Well,
right?
if you look for outside investment and you're willing to give up equity for it,
we've sold about 20% so far.
You want investors who not only have cash, but have some expertise in managing a business, in selling, in understanding your marketplace,
right.
Whatever it is you need. there are things that you can do well, and there are things you probably can't do well.
Many.
And we're all that way. We're all that way. So you want investors
Fill those gaps.
fill those gaps. You want employees who can fill those gaps.
Yep.
People that you can bring in as partners who can fill those gaps. And that's the important thing. There are many components to running a successful business, and no one person ever is going to have all of them.
Right.
That's what we try and, when we're working with the students at Kennesaw, we're trying to get them to understand that
You need a team.
you need a team. If you're just a bunch of engineers, and there's nothing wrong with a bunch of engineers,
Yeah.
but you need somebody who's going to understand finance. You're going to need somebody who understands sales and marketing and manufacturing and all these different components of the business.
Right.
Whatever it is. I mean, every
Yeah.
business is different, but every business has certain basic needs.
And really, again,
And so if you're an engineer, maybe you want to partner with
I'm not an engineer.
maybe you want to partner with that kid from the business college who's
Yeah.
majoring in marketing or majoring in finance or majoring in sales. And we do have a very good sales program, professional sales program that is excellent and hosts the annual National Collegiate Sales Competition at Kennesaw every year. And those kids in that professional sales program, they get 100% hired when they graduate.
Well, that's great.
Every one of them.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm the marketing sales guy, and that's what I do best at. That's what I love doing, but it's just I'm not able to do that as well as I would like, and then of course as our customers would like, just with the product that we're able to deliver this time in our development, right? And that is where we do have a great development team, and I am helping them, but I am definitely not the engineer.
You're not the engineer.
Yeah,
you're not writing code.
No, actually, our lead developer, he is saying, Jacob is a demanding dude who knows virtually no coding. That's yeah.
But you need
Right,
you need
and we need a Mohit.
you need a
Yeah,
Mohit.
we need a Gerardo, who's our lead electrical engineer. We need Brian to make us look good, because we can all be doing great work, but we're not showing it off to people, right?
Yeah.
Beyond what I'm doing in person. And then even in those in-person events, Brian comes along, video records those. They get to see our customers interacting with their developer, and then they get to see us presenting. And so it all, to your point, goes hand in hand. And going back to the investor, and I don't know if we'll want to cut this out. I'm fine. Would you think we can go over that proposal that I sent out? I mean,
Let Doug take a look at it.
yeah.
Maybe that's an after thing.
I think that
I think
How you doing on time?
well I don't
Well,
have any.
we can always cut it out. I mean, again, it's like,
I'd say let's do that later, because
Okay.
I don't want to get into.
He reached out to Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
reached out to him.
I mean, it's fine. I don't want to get into something that sidetracks us.
okay.
Let's focus on what we're doing here, and then
Yeah.
after we're finished, we can.
So one of the things I've heard you say is, and you too, Jake, is when you take in investors and you get partners and whatnot, then especially when more and more of the equity goes away,
Yep.
they might, like what happened with what happened with Jobs, they may say, well, the goal you have, we want you to, we feel we
Then we're
should
not
be
a good
focusing on, and that might happen. I'm saying,
It has
and
happened.
it might develop though. I mean, you may have a partner that comes in and gives a bunch of money, for example, and has equity and ownership, and then they may voice with some other partners that, hey, we want to change the direction, and that's one of the dangers you run into when you
bring in
when
outside
you bring in capital versus
yeah.
doing it yourself and maintaining control.
And to your point, I mean, it is ideally you get and see if there's alignment, ahead of time, right, before any deal is inked, right?
Things change, though.
Things do change,
but
right?
things change,
right?
And
that there are structures in place, and now it will turn some investors off, absolutely. Where you take like the Mark Zuckerberg approach and have super voting shares, or Jeff Bezos has done something similar. Warren Buffett with the Class A, Class B.
Can you retain control?
Yes,
Is the thing. How much can you give away
right.
without losing control?
And so we do have a Class A/B share structure where A is fully economic only, and then the B shares also have voting rights.
But
And
But the other thing is if those changes happen and some of the partners are unhappy,
Yeah.
you
We're
may
not making sales
you
fast
may
enough.
you may have control, but how are you going to split up? Do you have agreements? Somebody once said, before you sign a deal, make sure you know how you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so do you have agreements on how, if we disagree, we're going to split the baby, split the pie, and go our separate ways?
Yeah.
Or is it going to wind up with lawsuits, which, if it winds up that way, the only people that get rich are the lawyers.
That's it. You might as well just give your money to the lawyers.
You don't. You want to give them the money up front to
Yeah.
come up with a way to make it go away easy. It's like, get a prenup. Don't fight it out.
Are you familiar with Phil Hartman? He was a comedic actor. He was like on news radio. He talked about this somewhat famously, like where his wife ended up murdering him, right? And he was like talking about how bad the relationship was getting, and people are like, just get a divorce, fine, you have to give up half, whatever. And he was like, it's not half, it's 2/3. She gets a third, the lawyers get a third, and absolutely. That's
and sometimes you have to compromise, even though the person, your partner, does not have a controlling interest. If they're valuable enough to the organization,
right,
maybe you compromise.
Absolutely.
Because you need their skill in whatever it is you brought them in for.
Yep.
You don't want them to go away. Even if you can do it amicably,
right,
you still want what they can bring to the table.
Yeah, and that's like, I just don't want iVue to get to a point, at least while I'm around, and hopefully it's around much longer than I am, that it doesn't go the way of a lot of companies do when they get bigger, especially when the founder leaves. That, like you're saying, they don't make any clear decisions. They have no sense of direction. They kind of lose what made them, or got them to what where they were, right? And like obviously, again, pieces change.
Yeah, but that's. I mean, businesses change,
by bureaucracy.
Markets change.
Right.
As the company gets bigger, it inevitably gets more bureaucratic.
Right.
Even unless you're very good at decentralizing it, and you mentioned Buffett.
I like to think I am.
He was very good at that. He had a very small central office, very few direct reports. He had everything decentralized. Every business was kind of run in its own thing.
Yeah.
But one thing that you have to remember when you're running a business is that you will exit the business. It's not if you will exit the business, it's when you will exit the business.
I'll die at some point.
That's it.
Yeah.
Even if they carry you out feet first,
Yep.
you're going to exit the business.
Yep.
And what happens to the business after that,
Having a succession plan.
you no longer have complete control.
Yep.
And you may have some control with your succession plan and the kind of culture that you've built, but there's no guarantees.
Right.
And what happens after you're gone? So
I'll be gone, so I guess I won't really care that much, right?
That happens when you sell a business as well.
Yep.
You don't have any control over it.
And then you see your name perversed and used in ways that you don't like.
One of my friends started a very successful business. She built it all with a partner on credit card debt.
Yep.
And it was all online. And then they opened one store in New York City. And one day somebody from Unilever walked into that store and said, "We'd like to buy you."
Wow.
Yep. Just staying in the game long.
For $100 million.
Wow. Yep.
So she sold.
Smart.
And
Sell out?
but a few years later, what she did was make laundry products. They were very high end and very ethical, very sensitive for the environment, for individuals, things like that. And after a few years, Unilever started having to recall the products that were going out under her company's name
Yep. Trying to maximize the profits.
because they were being contaminated or whatever. It wasn't.
Not going through quality control.
So
Yeah.
she had since left the company. She has now started a second company
Yep.
to reclaim
Her dignity.
her dignity and
yeah.
her name and
Yeah.
her customer base, who were, I mean, she knew many of her customers.
Right.
And
They were probably relieved
and
when she came knocking
they were
personally.
calling and saying, you know, what is Unilever doing to my product? It doesn't work the way it used to.
Yeah.
So she started another business. And
Extracting
Can you
value.
share the name of the company? Or
her old business was the laundress,
Okay.
which was bought by Unilever. And
was it national?
yeah.
She had taken it national
Yeah.
before she
I would
sold
hope
it.
for $100 million it's
Yeah,
national.
and
Well,
I-
it might be
Yeah.
regional or something.
And I can't, I'm blanking on the name of the new business. but
Women's skin care, stuff like that.
I can look it up for you later.
I'm just curious.
But the fact is that although she made enough money
It's not about money.
to
in our
retire
business.
very
Yeah.
happily and not have to work again, she's working again, building something from scratch because of what the new owners did to her business. Now, not everybody
It's like that.
is like that,
Yep.
but
I'm very
you
much
don't-
like that.
You don't know if it comes to that, you may find yourself in that kind of situation.
I like to tell Jim.
Jake's not. If Bezos walked in here right now and offered him $20 million to buy his company, and,
No.
and he wouldn't do it. He
No.
would.
No, not at all.
In other words, he's not interested.
No, because
in,
like there's
but, you know,
the
there
Mark
are-
Zuckerberg sort of quote that he got like $1 billion buyout offer from Google, and it's like, well, what would I do with that? I'd go start another social media company, and I like the one that I have currently, so no, I'll keep mine.
On the other hand, there are people who have given up big offers like that and then run their company
To the
downhill
ground.
and wind up with nothing. So,
yeah, it
you know,
works.
it-
It's-
I'll take
works
the
both
chance.
ways.
Yeah, if I
Works
can get
both
to
ways.
$1 billion
It's too-
offer and then run it into the ground, hey, I had a good run while I was at it, right?
two sides to every coin.
Yeah.
So
you just have to be aware of what your options are
Yep.
and make sure you really understand what option you're choosing.
Yeah. Well, unless there's anything that you wanted to touch on with the work that you've done in the media business, how I've come to meet you is through your work kind of in philanthropy and then local like this education, not necessarily just education, right? You're very involved with Kennesaw State, but really entrepreneurship and innovation within Atlanta. And I know you go back up to Ithaca, or you're somewhat involved in Cornell. Can
Yeah.
you speak to what that transition was like from you getting into media to, hey, what's next?
Well, when we sold the business the second time in '98, and my partners and I each had 1-year contracts to stay with the business, but we quickly realized that we were going to be overhead, and they didn't want us around. In fact, one of the executives sort of apologized that, we hope we weren't insulting you with just a 1-year contract. And we said, no, we would have been happy with a 0-year contract. We didn't want to stay around. But, we started actually working on a new business in the internet-based business. But it was the .com era, and suddenly it
All
crashed.
volatility.
Everything went away. Nobody was interested in it anymore. My partner went on and started a new trade show business. I got involved with Kennesaw State and decided, I've made enough money at this point. I will make more just from the investments. I don't have to worry about where my next meal is coming from. Let me try working with the not-for-profit for a while and just see what happens. I had no
You
particular
run into
knowledge
strange
of where
guys
I
like
was
me.
going.
That's what happens.
But, Tim Mescon, who was then the dean of the business college at Kennesaw, invited me to be on his advisory board. That was in 1999. And I've been there ever since and growing what I'm doing. In 2016, I guess, Kat Schweig, who was then the dean of the business college, asked if I would be interested in supporting an entrepreneurship center.
That's how you met.
And I said yes, and we launched the Robin and Doug Shore Entrepreneurship Center at Kennesaw State, and that's grown since the beginning. We started out in the business college, but we found out very quickly, and we needed to change directors to get there, but our current director, Greg Quinnett, is very active in that area. We needed to work with all of the colleges in the university. We couldn't be siloed in the business college.
Good.
And so it wound up, we had to network with all the deans and develop programs that would meet their needs. And so we have now space on both the Kennesaw campus and the Marietta campus. Marietta is where the engineering and architecture and computer science is. That was the old Southern Tech.
Yep.
So it was an engineering campus. We merged with them. I don't know when it was, maybe 15 years ago now.
I think it would have been, about then, 2010 to 2013-ish, I think.
Yeah, maybe 2012 to 2015-ish,
Yeah.
And
It's working.
so now we have spaces on both campuses. We'll soon move into the new iSTEM building that'll be finished later this year or early next year on the Marietta campus. And we have a lot of engineers now involved in the program. They, more than the business students, have the ideas,
Right.
but they need the business students to work with them. And we need space on both campuses because it's too big a trip. It's only 8 miles, but 8 miles on I-75 at any given time of day, you don't know how long it's going to take. So we need spaces. We've got the spaces now on both campuses. Sid Mukherjee, who is a venture capitalist in town, been a successful entrepreneur and made a successful exit on his own. He is now supporting what is called the Mukherjee Innovation Fund that provides student businesses with cash, non-equity cash, up to $30,000 if you qualify, so that these students can have some wherewithal to start building a real business. And we financed a number of those through the Mukherjee Innovation Fund over the years. And I don't know how many exactly, probably 20 or 30, probably $200,000 to $300,000 in total over the last few years have gotten some financing, and some have gone on and raised venture capital funding or angel funding and have started growing beyond the bounds of the Entrepreneurship Center. So it's been a lot of fun. If you look at the homepage of the Entrepreneurship Center, you can see some of the companies that have started. Some of those links are live and you can go to their web pages. Some are not there yet, but you can see kind of what they're doing. And it's a lot of fun. I guess our most forward venture so far is a company called Happy Doc, which provides solutions for the veterinary field. And they've raised a couple of $1 million, I think, in venture capital. And they sell a platform of software for veterinarians that is a combination of voice recognition and AI, so that it will record all of the conversation about a veterinary patient and then put all of the necessary information into the right boxes into their software programs and ignore all of the non-essentials, like when a veterinarian meets a customer and the patient, there's usually oh, aren't you a good boy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The software knows to ignore
All that humanity
all
stuff.
That, yeah, but it will, but it will record the the temperature and the blood pressure and the physical conditions and put all of those things in the right place, and then what the prognosis is or what the prescription should be, what's the next step, and puts all that in the right place, so that it provides a record for the veterinarian. It provides the take-home piece for the customer when they take home the pet. These are the things that you should do next when you get the pet home. These are the prescriptions you should get from the pharmacy, whatever. So instead of having to go back after each visit and do all that work on a keyboard, in the medical world, human doctors, you found a lot of doctors hiring scribes to take all those notes.
Yeah.
And now the doctors want to get rid of the scribes too. So they have these software businesses that can provide the scribe service and compartmentalize it and record it the right way. It's just that this company, when they started, was thinking about doing that in the medical field. But with few resources, the advice they got from our people was, if you do it in the medical field,
red tape.
You've got HIPAA. You're going to have a lot of regulation that you're going to have to overcome. And it's going to be very expensive. You can do the same thing in the veterinary field for a lot lower cost.
Yeah, worst comes to worst, you take out Fido. No.
and there's no HIPAA.
Yeah.
So you don't have federal regulations and you don't have state regulations and all that stuff. It was a lot easier to get started. And they've been very successful so far.
If I can just throw something out based on something Doug just said, and that is when we talk about how things change, I mean, you've got AI because you're in a technology industry.
Yep.
And so what is AI going to be doing to the model, to the drone model and the ideas you have, and how
detecting people, automatically coming up with routes, being able to do live searches of objects, or hey, I want to be able...
What Trent is doing in geolocating.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. That's Matthew that you're talking about. Yeah, Matthew Krupsak. Yeah. We've been talking with him, and we actually found that, again, there's probably incrementally better or whatever, but the open source, that like firmware that's built into our drones has that same sort of functionality built in. So we're using that for the time being, but we have continued to talk to see if they want to actually launch their application within our larger software platform.
Because it's potentially a very important application. It's not easily being done anywhere. And like I said, the military is very interested in it because there are so many military applications of drones. So he's getting invites to go to all of these presentations and things. But it's also very valuable in the civilian world. And there are countless... I mean, nobody's counted up all the different applications, I guess, which is why you've got so much on your plate. You're trying to create something that
can be adapted
to all of these things. AI is going to be a part of that. It's going to be a part of every business.
Right.
It's just a matter of how. And in the media business, I read people talking about whether we should have AI writing stories or not. And some of them,
I think it can help.
Some of them are in some of the more out of the way things where it's not as mission critical as the ones you send people out to write. But there's downsides to that too.
Yeah. It's really going to revolutionize
between plagiarism and hallucinations and everything like that. Nobody quite knows how it's going to work out.
And then does like OpenAI take IP? Like, hey, well, you used or ChatGPT to generate that script that you just made a bunch of money on from producing that movie around it. But then can it go back even further? Well, hey, you ChatGPT and OpenAI, you took this information that wasn't actually yours to use within your AI model to begin with. And again, I think we really, if we want to stay as a world power in this country, need to by and large get away of trademark copyright, because if we're wanting to truly compete in a global marketplace, China doesn't play by those same rules. And it's great in theory to have like these protections for people, but if it's only hurting Americans, who is it really helping, right? Who is it there for?
The people who create information want to be paid for it.
And I think information should be free,
and
as close to free as possible.
Well,
nothing's free.
But again, like then should we not have books? Should we not have the printing press? Should we just have people that only?
If it's free,
you're the product. You're the advertisement. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Google is free.
Right.
I can look up things on Google.
And Google knows you're here,
and they
I'm
know
here, and
they know where, and they know what I'm buying,
Yeah.
and they know what I'm talking about, and they know all about me. So they're selling me.
Yep.
I'm the product. But if you're a writer and a publisher and an editor and an ad salesperson, and you're trying to make a magazine, you can't do that unless somebody pays you for what you're doing. You don't eat. If you don't eat, you're not going to do it. And some people will write because they're driven to, but I think it was Samuel Johnson back in the 18th century that said, nobody but an idiot ever wrote for anything but money. Because, the starving artist in the garret is an image that we've all learned about, but starving artists, some of them become famous, but they don't live very long if they're starving.
And I'm a musician full time now, and I took care of business and did the job thing, and a very wise friend of my parents, who was a professor at Clemson University. My mom and dad lived up there. We're from South Carolina, right? Mm-hmm. But he encouraged me. I went to him. My mom encouraged me. I was maybe about your age or whatever. She encouraged me to sit down with Dr. Bennett and pick his brain on things. And I poured out all this passion I have for arts and the music and whatnot. And he said, I would keep the musical stuff. Let that be the avocation and the passion, and get the job. And I have to say, to my position now, I'm so glad I did, because it's nice being able to afford things and have the means to go and do and participate in all kinds of more enriching ways. And so I'm around a lot of musicians here in Atlanta who have been 100% devoted, and they're still devoted. They're also really limited. The world is their world is limited as to what they can do. So it's
okay, but when does that unlock, right? Because, there's this whole idea, once I'm a millionaire, but what does being a millionaire really mean in this country?
Not what it was 20 years ago.
Well, and so, you go back to 1975, $100,000 of 1975 is, or $169,000 from 1975 is about $1 million today.
I could believe that. That sounds
I don't
right.
know exactly the numbers.
I can remember when cigarettes were $1. I mean, they're not, there's
it's
all these
almost become the
taxes.
new six-figure salary. If you're making $1 million salary, it's very close to where people like, hey, I just need to get that six-figure salary.
$1 million is a lot of money, but
a million. The way I like to look at our economy, and this isn't new as of January this year, as a lot of people like to make it out, that it's just as difficult, if not more difficult than ever, to make $1 million in this country. But what's not so arguable is it goes much less of a distance than it ever has before.
Well, I don't know that it's any more difficult or less difficult.
Or just as difficult.
Or just as difficult. I mean, inflation has changed all the numbers.
Yeah.
So whatever you were doing 50 years ago, add some zeros to it, and with the right number of zeros, it'll be equivalent. But I don't know exactly what that is. I don't think it's any easier or harder in some ways, just in looking at the numbers, I think it's in many ways easier to start a business today
I agree. Yep.
because you have all the technology that lets you bypass a lot of the stuff that we had to pay for to get things started back in the day. We had
For service-based businesses, yes.
yeah, and even for
I would say for true technology businesses.
even for manufacturing, if
yes,
it was
3D printers. Yes, we're able
Yeah.
to make parts that would in hours or days that would have taken months or at the very least weeks if we had local suppliers. we could
or
work
new
with.
materials that can do
Yes.
things that you couldn't do these things with, or I don't have to go to a printer and print ink on paper and then go to the post office and send all these packages through the mail to get to your door so you can read what I wrote and read the ads that he sold. I can do that without the print machine, was bigger than a building.
Yeah,
It was in a huge
yeah.
warehouse.
Right.
And it costs a lot of money to run that. And the post office cost a lot of money to take your thing and whatever it was and drive it to every single house or
Drop it.
office on the route. I skip all that now.
Yep.
I don't need any of that. I can get my message to you instantly.
Right.
All I need is a computer.
Yeah.
And when we started a internet business in the old company, in the company we sold in 99, 98, it was a point of sale for the sporting goods industry. We had to buy a lot of computers. We had to buy a room full of computers back then because that was the only way to do it. Now I don't have to buy anything. I can lease computer time from the cloud, from where Amazon, Microsoft, Google. I don't have to put that capital into the business. I can use that capital to do other things and just lease the computer time I need for even a high capacity product. And that's why you've got all these AI developers now, and why people like Amazon are making a lot more money from AWS than they are from selling
Retail.
books and shoes and whatever, cosmetics and whatever to the whole world.
I'm sorry, AWS?
Amazon Web Services.
Oh,
So
okay.
basically all their data center infrastructure and all their software that they have running within the computers in those data centers or servers within those data centers.
So that's their main source of profitability. They don't make a lot of money selling you books or
Yeah, Jeff
Whatever.
Bezos had to be sold
Whatever.
on that idea as well. He was pitching, he was like, whatever, and then little did he know they got a 7-year head start, really ahead of Microsoft, Google before they started really pushing their cloud services in the way they were.
And now anybody that has a lot of computer capacity that they've had to build up because that was their business has now learned that they can lease
Now
time
you just
on
have to
that.
be dependent on a third party, right? Which we've seen in some businesses, they get pulled from the Amazon Web Services and all these providers. And so it's a catch-22. And hey, is it better to get started? But then is it really better to get to scale? I would still say yes, but again, there's different challenges.
Or can you create something that's portable between the different vendors?
Well,
So-
a lot of the times they'll actually get in unison, like social media platforms.
Yeah.
If they're banning someone, oftentimes they'll coordinate amongst the others and deplatform you.
They got a place to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Oracle has now built up a big business in that, and it's been
Yep.
they've been their stock
Larry
has been
Ellison's
going-
doing well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well enough that his son could buy CBS.
I didn't even know that. I'm just very familiar with
This whole transaction that you see with CBS and Paramount.
Okay, I did hear about the Paramount and then
CBS and Paramount are
merging.
Well, they're part of one holding
Okay.
that is being sold to a company called Skyview. I think it's Skyview.
Skydance.
Skydance.
Which I think is TikTok. Is
and
that
that's run by Larry Ellison's son.
right? Okay. Yeah.
And that's the company that fired or is firing Colbert
Yeah.
Yeah.
because is it because of a political thing or because
They're losing $40 million
business
a
is
year.
losing $40 million a
Which
year.
do you think it is?
Yes, I think both.
I think yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Both. That's
even-
fine.
even-
that's
even-
the right answer.
even if his politics was exactly what I wanted, even
40 million is 40
even
million.
multi-billionaires get tired of losing $40 million a year at some point.
Yeah.
So, you have to figure out what works best for your company.
Well, that's
Not to mention that if I'm selling the business at, say, 10 times earnings, if I cut out $40 million of loss, I've just gained $400 million worth of value. So,
yeah, opportunity cost.
and if
Yeah,
and
right.
if the and I'm sure the multiple is much higher than 10. So, multiply 40 million times whatever.
Yeah.
You've just gained a hell of a lot
of
more
value in
net
your company.
worth.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Colbert just isn't worth that much.
Yeah.
And he's not so funny anymore.
I'm sure he'll be all right though.
Oh,
as well. Yeah.
he'll land on his feet.
Another good South Carolina boy.
Yeah.
He's from South Carolina.
Is he? Okay. Yeah. Not anymore.
You
He's
wouldn't-
up in like the Hamptons
You wouldn't
or
believe
whatever.
it. You
and
wouldn't
then-
believe
yeah.
it. But anything else? We good?
But
It's been really enjoyable.
Well, you asked me, I told you a little bit about KSU.
Kennesaw, yeah.
Cornell had a well-established entrepreneurship program, but I learned about it, and when I went up there for my 50th reunion in 2017, I met with the director of the program, and now I'm on his advisory council, along with over 100 other people who pay dues each year that help support that program. And they have an eLab program where student businesses, again, can start something up, and if they progress well enough, they all will pitch actually at a program in New York in October, and maybe half of them will survive to pitch again at another program in Ithaca in the spring.
Yep.
And some of those will actually become real businesses, and they've gotten venture capital funding for many of them, and they go on and become successful. Or they don't, but at least the students have had good experience in how to grow a business and learning what skills they need, what skills they have, very importantly, what skills they don't have
Yep.
and need to find somewhere else. And it's all very exciting. At Kennesaw, we do it just for undergraduates and recent graduates. At Cornell, it works for students and graduate students as well. And at Kennesaw, for people that are not currently students or haven't been graduates of Kennesaw, there's the Hatchbridge Incubator, which I know you're familiar
Yep.
with, that works for faculty who want to commercialize their research, or for entrepreneurs in the community who want a place to go that will help them get a business idea launched. So we have both the Entrepreneurship Center for the students and the Hatchbridge Incubator for those who are beyond the student range who want to launch businesses.
People like myself that come in off the streets. Hey, I got this idea. What are your thoughts? May not take all of them, but I'll at
Hey,
least
that's
hear
a
them
good.
out.
That's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah.
We'll give you some mentors. We'll give you some advisors. We'll let you work in a network with other entrepreneurs so you can maybe learn from each other. And at some point, we'll kick you out
Yeah.
when you're strong enough to fly on your own, or
Your drones are strong
Or
enough
you-
to fly on their own.
or you're just not going to make it. Goodbye.
Yeah.
But most people will find some way to keep going.
Yeah. Well, Doug, thank you for joining us today. Really enjoyed catching up with you, and hopefully you guys enjoyed getting to learn about how you guys have some similar paths or crossover in what you guys have done. And Jim, unless you have any other closing thoughts, I think this was a great episode. So
thank you for having me. And I'd just say, if you're in the Atlanta area and you're interested in these kinds of things, look into Kennesaw.
Yep.
Find out what's going on there. If you're not in the Atlanta area, there are places near you, universities, a lot more of them have entrepreneurship programs now, and there are incubators, and there are people of goodwill all around. Georgia Tech has a program. I go down to their Angel Lounge luncheon every month at ATDC, which is for angel investors, which I've never been very good at, but hopefully I will learn.
Lottery.
And that's ATDC is a very good program down there, and there's lots of programs. If you're interested, you have the curiosity, look out there and find out what is out there that can help you grow.
I have a couple add-ons to that. Sorry, I got to get the last word in. I would add, for the people that are not local to Metro Atlanta, one thing that helped me get started when I was based out of Middle Tennessee, Murfreesboro. There's a small business development center up there. I think I really lucked out with the guy that happened to be there. He was one of the business directors at a video game company called Blizzard Entertainment. So he actually understood, hey, we're starting a tech business. We're actually starting as services to bootstrap, but we are actually building a technology business. And so, you will, in some cases, get kind of cookie cutter advice. But again, being an entrepreneur, part of it is knowing what to take, what not to, and, committing to the decision. And if you mess up,
if you can, find people in your market area who are interested. Find people who have been through it before. One person I know says they don't want to talk to anybody who hasn't had successful exits. If you haven't had a successful exit, you really don't know what you're doing yet, and I'm not going to take advice from you. So
I think there's something to be said that you can learn from anybody and everybody.
But you can also learn from your failures.
Right.
And people who don't make it. There are some venture capitalists who don't want to invest in a first-time startup.
Yep.
But they'll start in the second-time or third-time founder, even if their first time was a failure.
Right.
Because they've learned.
Hopefully.
They've learned some lessons, and they're doing it better now.
Well, and the one other comment that I want to make, which our true first angel investor, we got an angel investor, but he was a real estate developer that just happened to meet me as the drone guy and wanted to make an investment. That was our first investment that we received. The second one, he was actually in the business of angel investing. You probably have met him, maybe even just know him by name, Chris Klaus.
I know Chris.
So he had invested in us $150,000 through a fairly standard sort of deal that he'll give a lot of CreateX companies that show that they've either gone in full time and generated some revenue, and it's really, you have non-zero revenue, like very clear, like you're onto something, as well as at least one, if not two people full time. But it was interesting hearing about their story getting started, where he was 26 years old. His business partner, Tom Noonan, 30 years old. Tom Noonan, they were building all of their business, off credit card debt. He had hundreds of thousands of dollars of credit card debt, met Sig Mosley, and he basically had a conversation with Sig Mosley. Hey, either you invest or I'm going to have to declare bankruptcy. And it's like, what person in their right mind trying to make a sound investment thinks that's a good proposition? But sometimes, that's where it is. Before you're literally 6 feet under or 5 feet under, about dead, but all of a sudden you get just the right opportunity that allows you to actually take off.
And Sig is a great investor to have on your side.
Yep.
And
he's been here. We've had him.
Yeah. And Chris is a great very successful entrepreneur.
Yep.
And now he has a great program at Georgia Tech. He supports a lot of startup businesses like yours.
Not like
and
mine, but other startups.
others that through his program at Tech is very successful.
Yep.
So there's a lot of good entrepreneurs in the Atlanta area, and in any area there's somebody.
Right.
And if they're not in your area, then
Find them.
move,
Yep.
or take a trip. Go visit Atlanta or New York or Silicon Valley or whatever, and do a road trip.
Perfect. Well, Doug, thank you again, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Okay, as long as we think of some new things to talk about.
That's never
Never a problem.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Pleasure to meet you.
Thanks. Good meeting you.